Welcome, folks, to another episode of Who's Ghost Stories. Today is kind of a special one because we are tackling one of Erie's most talked about legends.
Well known.
And local stories. If you've grown up here, you've definitely heard about this, but we are talking about Axe Murder Hollow today. This is one that I've wanted to do because as a kid I was always fascinated by this story. And once we dive into the history a bit, there's a lot of things that play into the Hollow. So growing up, there was never a clear story. They all had similar parts and pieces, the same overall theme, but everyone's story was slightly different. And we'll find out why, but I'm really excited to get in here. So let's go ahead and Sean, take us in.
If you grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania, then you've no doubt heard the legend and tale of Axe Murder Hollow. A favorite across school playgrounds and late-night sleepovers, this legend comes from the woods of Mill Creek. There are different versions of this legend, but they all surround an angered or deranged husband that murders his wife and children with an axe. The troubled ghost of the man and his family haunted the area ever since. Before the area was turned into a suburban neighborhood, there were rumors that part of the foundation, steps, or stone chimney still stood, with blood splattered across them and the nearby trees. Phenomena happening in these woods can be traced back to about 1945, when a newspaper article says the Harbor Creek football team saw a ghost. They heard disembodied laughter and saw random flashes of light. Since then, countless people traveled to the area looking for ghosts. Many people claim to see apparitions, including headless victims, to have their cars stall out, electronics stop working, and unexplained temperature drops. At one point, a band of gypsies supposedly lived on the land and were protecting the secret of the Hollow.
The actual history of the Hollow is a bit muddled. One William Billy Grack, also known as Billy the Butcher, which I found hilarious because that's the name of the character from The Boys. So William Billy the Butcher Grack may have lived at the location. A butcher by trade, he kept his utensils inside the house when he was not working at the slaughterhouse. Around 1922, two teen boys broke into the Grack family home, but were caught by William. William held on to the teen boys until the police arrived. Some believe that these boys witnessing a very angry man, surrounded by bloody tools and aprons, was the birth of the legend. Stephanie Winsick tells a different origin story in her book Ghosts of Erie County. In the book, she talks of a band of Romani people that were traveling through the area and decided to make camp in the Hollow. The people's leader caught his wife having an affair and proceeded to chop off her head before hiding it in a nearby library. Interesting to note, many newspaper articles were written at the turn of the 20th century accusing gypsies of causing mayhem in the area. There were also a number of reports saying children were being abducted, hinting that the gypsies were to blame.
Those origins may or may not be true, but the Hollow has seen some dark violence. Sensitive information alert, you might want to skip ahead as we discuss a real crime. In 1963, Edinburgh University student Mary Lynn Crotty was found brutally murdered by 21-year-old Daniel R. Biebighauser. I know I'm pronouncing that name wrong. Mary was bound, raped, strangled, and stabbed 15 times. Her body then dumped in the Hollow. Mary was set up on a blind date with Daniel, and it's suspected the murder occurred when she rejected his advances. Police were able to get a confession from Daniel and charge him with the crime, but this was a dark time in history that stained the Hollow. We may never know the true origins of the legend of Axe Murder Hollow, but it has captivated Erieites for years. Could the ghosts of a murdered family have been trapped in the area? Were gypsies really trying to protect a dark secret in the Hollow? Maybe it's for the best a neighborhood took its place.
So, as a kid, I never heard the potentially true stuff that actually could have happened there or did happen there. The story I always heard was, like Sean said, the man killed his wife and family in the home, or some variation of that.
Yep.
Learning about the true things that may have happened there, and the one thing that did happen there, much darker.
Oh, yeah.
When a potential robbery is the least dark and violent of what could have happened at the Hollow, it's not a good list to be on.
No.
And the fact that the crime did take place there is obviously something that would 100% stay in that area. Even if it didn't take place there and just ended there, that's something that would forever leave a stain and a mark on that place's energy. And like you guys said, like this is always something like at sleepovers we always talked about.
Yeah.
Or like you would hear about how your friend's brother went to Axe Murder Hollow, or they were at Axe Murder Hollow and they saw all this stuff. One of the apparitions that I always heard people saw was a headless man walking through the area.
I want to dig a little bit more from the history. What is the story that's often told in relation to this? So we know the husband killed his wife and kids. That's the classic story. But there is the follow-up that has a striking resemblance to traditional axe murder and hookman stories from across the United States, and that's the couple stopping in the area. And, legitimately, that story is the follow-up with this, and that, as I kind of already said, it's deeply rooted in all the other axe murder stories from across the nation, as well as the hookman stories.
Oh, yeah. Every single town has its own variants of the Axe Murder Hollow. Just like Old Crowley Mansion was our stereotypical haunted house.
Yeah.
This is definitely our urban legend.
Yes. Now, and I wonder if, I wonder if the two stories, if they were true, you've already got kind of like a weird place. You've got these kids that are saying some maniac was holding us or kidnapped us, something like that. And then you've got these gypsies that are taking to the area. It'd be very easy to add on top of that the axe murder, the hook man.
Oh, yeah.
Especially because gypsies have never been, and the amount of people have never been that well respected. So if there's a band of them coming through the area,
you're expecting that they're going to be committing crimes.
Yeah, and anything that does go wrong, it's them.
Right.
100%. And what's interesting, I think it's in the Erie Reader article, it says the library that the head was hidden in, but there's no record of people working there ever finding a head or anything like that being hidden there. There's no record of the end of that happening. So was the axe murder story blended in on top of the gypsies to just make them look worse? Or what? But it's definitely an interesting history that we've got these two possible origins, and then it blends into your stereotypical Axeman, Hookman.
Yeah. Oh no, because I agree. Growing up, Axe Murder Hollow, all things people talked about in school, driving there.
Yeah.
Megan and I did go there, except it was after it had become basically condominiums. So, nothing romantic about haunted condominiums. So
No.
Well, I hope it wouldn't be romantic. It was you and your sister. I mean, we can go to some of those other stories, but I don't think we want to.
And I mean, it's all private property now. You can't actually go there. So this one is definitely more of a legend that we wouldn't truly be able to visit, unless we finally talk Joe into buying a condo.
Yeah, unless we want to go through someone's backyard or a partial soccer field.
I have an interesting thought that I considering that none of us have kids or anything, I wonder if we could find it out. But I wonder if the legend of Axe Murder Hollow is still told.
I know.
On the playground, because, as you said, it's condominiums now. Like,
Yeah.
Does the legend still live on?
I would probably think not. Like,
I think it probably has died out. I'm sure if you I bet if you'd mention Axe Murder Hollow to anyone currently under the age of like 16, they probably have no idea what you're talking about. And 16 is kind of pushing it only because older brothers would probably still pass it down.
And that's what I'm wondering, like if it's being carried on that way. As you kind of said that, I was thinking like the stories about Cathedral Center. Like it wasn't a school for a little bit, and then it's a school again. And I wonder, is there still that? Anyway, yeah.
I wonder if, kind of piggybacking off of that, if the legend has morphed at all into being, oh yeah, this land was cursed. Now these condominiums, nobody can live in them. Nobody
or if
can
it
stay
has
there.
a new face, and it's a Slender Man story now.
Yeah.
Or
It'd be interesting to hear a modern take from a current kid in that area about this. The problem is my nephews don't live in Erie; they live in Nebraska, so it's like I can't even ask them if they've heard the story because it's like this is our specific local. So yeah.
And like I can totally see there being terrible energy because that crime did happen on that location.
Yeah, no matter the one we know 100% for sure, like that's 100% negative energy. Like you can't avoid that.
Yeah, that left the area permanently stained. I don't think there's the brutality that I got into. I don't think there's any way to cleanse that out.
No.
That's just part of the area. And so, like, if you go there and you're experiencing phenomena, like the apparition you might be seeing could be the girl.
Yeah.
The feelings you're feeling could be her feelings, but because of the legend, you would never know.
Yeah.
And like that was what's interesting to me. That was in '63, and the first reported article about any phenomena was in 1945 from a high school football team.
Yeah.
So we've all been high school boys. We know not everything out of their mouths is truthful. There are some pranks that get thrown around. So like, is that what started it all? And then, for like 20 years, was that just kind of like, oh yeah, this might be haunted, and then this crime happens, and that like re-spurs everything.
I also like that it was a Harbor Creek football team.
Yeah.
Not Mill Creek.
No.
Not McDowell.
That is an interesting wrinkle that you don't really think about, but because what would be funnier than having an entire town believe that
And you
it's
get to
haunted.
throw a dig at a rival football
Yeah.
team. Like,
Yeah. Because you totally see them just driving across town. Even if they thought they saw some getting spooked by something stupid and running back to town like, oh my God, and then it getting in the paper and it just, or they just legitimately Scooby-Dooed it where they were just like, oh. And that.
I think it's interesting that it's a football team.
Yeah.
Does that mean coaches were included? Or is it just the players? Because if it was the coaches, I could see it being less of a joke. But if it's just the players, I can see it being started as a joke, and then as real things happened, less than.
I don't think it's said. And I was trying to find the original article, but of course I couldn't find a 1945 newspaper article about Axe Murder Hollow.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been too easy. Oh, there was another article in 1960 published about some phenomena as well. That was not by the Harbor Creek football team, though.
But by then, the
legend
was already. And I know it's a fictional television show, but Supernatural did a lot of real research on these kind of things, and I wonder, is it a similar case of almost like a tulpa, like, you believe it's there, and that much belief in something leads to it happening. Like,
right.
You have to wonder if Axe Murder Hollow, the original story, none of it's true. It was all just a story, and it became its own thing. And took a life on.
All right, so Harbor Creek was the first to mention it. In December 1960, writer Tom McCormick of Erie Times News published an article interviewing Harper G. Rusterholz, whose family owned acres of the land and a dairy farm along that road. Rusterholz said, in the hollow lived but one resident, an old hermit named Billy. Billy reportedly was a son of one of Erie County's pioneer settlers, but Billy was disappointed in love, so he spent his life in a crude hut deep in the woods. So, and then that leads into Billy the Butcher, William Grack, being that possible Billy, which, again, if you're in that area, you see an old hut and you go poking around, and some wild butcher man catches you, and you've already known for, 15 years
that there's a...
Oh, no, that was before that, actually, that they broke in.
Yeah, they broke in 1922.
Nah, so ignore that. But yeah, the history is definitely interesting to try to figure out where it started and what actually happened. And like I know my brother used to go there a lot in high school because he was dating a early Wicca girl. And she wanted to go to the Hollow a lot. And he called them gypsies living there, but they could have just been like squatters and stuff living on the property. But he always said, like, for trespassers, they would throw like rocks at their car and try to shoo them away. So I wonder if that became part of the legend as like the gypsies hiding like something in the hollow. And I think like I read like one of the like legends passed around was like the gypsies were like the worshippers of the husband's ghost or whatever. Like that was his cult.
Every time there's always one.
Yep. And so like that, like I don't know, but like that would having just squatters there would also add to the mystery of.
Oh yeah.
Even though the simple explanation is just, a shanty town, something like that. These people just living off the land. But yeah, I think it's always something that'll always interest me, especially since we can't actually go to the original Hollow anymore.
Yeah, right.
Because in the article, there's like a picture of an old chimney, but I don't know if it's from the actual Hollow or not. And that was always part of the thing I heard. Like, you can see the steps, or you can see concrete walls, part of them, things like that. Like when we filmed the Survivor thing in the woods, we were looking for the farm, and it was just two walls that was stuck there. We're like, oh.
I know what you're talking about.
What are we doing here? I almost wonder like if it was something like that, like where there was some sort of foundation there, and that just helped lend some sort of credibility to the legend.
And that's the other thing too. Like it could have just been red brick. Like it doesn't necessarily wasn't blood stained. Like
red moss on the trees.
There's a lot of possibility with this, and but it plays directly into what this is called. This is called the legend of Axe Murder Hollow. Legends never die, and legends change and adapt. And
as we've definitely seen throughout this season, all the best legends are grounded in fact.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you have to. If it's not grounded in fact, it's not believable.
Yeah, you just got to have that sliver.
The hint of fact is what gives credibility to these.
One Billy the Butcher, one band of gypsies is all it takes to get somebody talking.
And truly, this is the worst part about this one in particular is that while a lot of the other places, as long as they're public, we can go visit them. This is the only place we physically cannot visit because it's not there. Like it's, as we said, condominiums. Like there's no way to actually like look at the plot of land that was the supposed house. We can't find Billy the Butcher's shack in the woods.
Right.
It's gone.
I think the thing about this one that almost makes it worse is that the actual legend kind of overshadows the actual tragedy that took place there.
Like,
No.
I didn't even know that happened until researching this at all and being like, oh, yeah, so that was real.
I knew about the case. I did not know that this was where she was dumped.
Right, like it. And, like, one thing, like, I was just thinking about, so, like, 1922, the two teen boys were rummaging through the area and got busted. Like, 23 years separates them in the article in the newspaper from Harbor Creek Boys. Like, it's possible that they
We're messing around with Billy. Like, Billy could have still been alive at that point.
They could have been messing with Billy. Like, these two teen boys could have been related or in the area of the Harbor Creek team and passed down, like, oh, there's this crazy butcher
easily.
out there. And then they go check it out, and
Yeah.
you know,
It's the fact that
almost 100 years later
the
now we've got
stories
this.
the stories are so close together that it's believable. And that's the other thing is we joke all the time that Erie County is fairly large because it is, but Harbor Creek and Mill Creek are close.
Yeah.
If you're not from the area and you stumbled on these and you like these, great. But when we're talking Harbor Creek and Mill Creek, it's not like saying Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Like, that's a long distance. We're talking like
Minutes.
Yeah, they're close enough that they can be close rivals, and so
It's cross town.
yeah, the fact that the story, we don't have much detail about the teen boys, but if they were teens in 1922, they'd be in their early 20s during 1930s and have kids of their own and teenagers who are high school football kids in the 40s.
Yeah.
It legitimately could be their own kids. Like, that's what makes that part of the legend a little interesting, suspicious.
And, like, the way the law operated back then, if you've got this butcher just living off the land and you've got two teen boys, like, though I could see those cops not really punishing those boys at all. Like, they just
slap on the
home.
wrist and take them home.
Like, hey, don't go back there. That guy's crazy.
Yeah.
And so for the rest of their lives, they're just living with this. I swear there was this mad butcher out there, blood everywhere. Blood everywhere.
He tried to kill us.
Yeah. Like 20 years later, and Harbor Creek team goes back there, and then we get our first documented case of, hey, there's something out there.
Yeah.
And I really like your point. Like, it could have just still been Billy. Like, it may not have been an apparition. It could have just been Billy telling them to get off what he thought was his land.
And nobody wants to just go, oh yeah, we left because some old guy yelled at us.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to
specifically
a supposedly haunted place.
Saw a ghost, heard disembodied laughter, and saw random flashes of light. The ghost and the flashes of light very well could have been Billy.
Yeah. With a flashlight. There were flashlights.
What are you doing?
In 45, there were definitely flashlights. So
there were also cars and headlights.
Yeah.
Like, if it's in the middle of the woods, I don't know if he's necessarily... If he's a hermit, I really doubt
he probably doesn't have a car. But point is, he definitely could have
plenty
light.
of explanations,
The disembodied laughter, I can only imagine, is more of just them adding to the story.
Yeah. Because, I mean, high school teens, it could have been a prank, or that's legitimately what they thought. Like, they were just scared crapless and were like, I don't know, this...
Or the Mill Creek football team was playing a joke on the Harbor Creek football team.
Which would have equally been hilarious.
The best origin story.
The whole thing started because of a prank war.
Like, hey, I heard the Harbor Creek boys are coming out here. Well, let's give them a show.
Yeah. And then once it hit the papers, they couldn't say anything.
Right?
No, because
they took that to their graves.
And then that's the legend for years. And then you get Romani people moving through.
Oh, yeah, you can pin it on them. That's what you did.
Everything just keeps building up. And then, unfortunately, you get this tragedy that actually occurs. And
it just adds to the legend. It adds fuel to that fire.
Now, this is just literally cursed land. And nobody's going to question it.
No.
And nobody ever did question it. There was... Everyone that you talked to about the legend was like, oh, yeah, totally. Like, there was never anybody I ever talked to about it that was like, no, that's not true. It was always like, that's Axe Murder Hollow.
Like, the axe is still there.
Yeah.
That was something people would say.
Yeah. It was never it was never like, oh, that's such bullcrap. It was always like, yeah. Even if it was your first time hearing the story, like you were just like, yeah, that's Axe Murder Hollow.
Yeah.
Yeah, they teach us that in school. It's in the books.
Like it is.
It's in our textbooks.
Like looking back at it, like it's such a weird like local urban
Yeah.
legend that's like just not debated at all.
No, it's just accepted as fact. I don't know I don't even know skeptics in town that don't agree with it. Like they're just like, yeah, that's
And
Axe
it's
Murder
one of
Hollow.
those ones where there's no proof. Like
Yeah.
there is literally no proof. No
Yeah.
family that lived out there. No murders.
We have at the escape room, the local escape room. There's one that's literally the Axe Murder Hollow.
Yeah.
It takes the legend and it does like.
It's like a weird like heart of Erie like lore that like everybody's just like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
it's like our Salem. Like
Which is why I say I wonder what the legend is like for kids nowadays. Because it's like, if it's not physically there anymore, kids can't like dare each other to go there because it's not there. It's like, what do they do?
and like what are you gonna do? Lie that you went to a condominium? Like
Or I
Luckily,
wonder.
my grandma lived there.
And something I've been wondering and thinking about. I wonder if the location of Axe Murder Hollow has changed to still
That is a
be
good question.
in a wooded area, so you can still have it's Axe Murder Hollow, but anyone that knows the history of it knows physically where it is and what it is now. But if kids are still telling the story, I wonder if they've changed its location.
especially out in Mill Creek, lots of woods out there. It wouldn't be hard to move it. What, like 10 miles down the road?
Not even a mile.
Yeah,
It could be behind tops now.
yeah, like that.
Yeah,
There was somebody murdered out like, and the legend is there, but it's a different location.
yeah. The legend, and that's what we were saying. The legend adapts.
Yeah.
The story is there. It's just you change a couple of the details, rooted in fact, but modified just enough. So anyway, that's just my thoughts on that.
No, I love it.
As I said, this is one that we can't visit, so there's not a whole what would you expect to see or feel like. This is just 100% us talking about probably the most famous Erie legend for Erie people. So if you're not from Erie or Erie County and watching this, I hope you enjoyed a little bit of this dive into what is, as Andrew said, Erie Salem.
Yeah,
Right.
and you should totally
Buy a
dig up-
condo there.
Yeah, buy a condo there. And you should totally like dig up what you can. Like the Erie Reader's article was really good at trying to put a factual history to it,
Yeah.
but I just, like Sean said, I don't
There's-
think there's anything concrete
Yeah.
you can nail down there other than the one tragedy. But
Yeah.
that's well after
Yeah.
Everything
legends.
else, yeah.
Which I wonder if any of the condos in that area feel any of the energy from that tragedy, or any of just, like we said, like when you go looking for something, you'll find it or leave a trace of it. Like, is there any residual negative energy
Yeah.
left there over time? Has it just dissipated now?
Right.
And unless we decide to buy all the condominiums, I don't think that we're going to find that answer. Unfortunately.
If anybody out there owns a condo, let us know if you've experienced anything, because
Yeah.
that would be interesting to hear. But
And why wouldn't you want us three in your house?
Yeah.
So
I mean, look at us. We're adorable.
and if you know what kids are talking about nowadays in regards to Axe Murder Hollow,
Yeah,
if
please
it's
let us
around,
know.
definitely.
We
We
definitely
We want to know the new legend, the new tale.
Yeah.
I would be more interested in the evolution of it than actually trying to visit the
Yeah.
original Hollow.
Yeah.
Like,
I'd also like to, if they did change the location, I'd like to go to the new location to see, like, what's the history of this location? Why did they pick it? Was it just because it was convenient, or
$10, they moved it to the farm we were at. they found those ruins and they're like, "Yep, there was somebody killed here."
are we talking about in over on by East Lake Road in the train tracks, the hellhole?
Yeah.
It's an old brick building that was like a smokestack, and that's it.
You can tell that they murdered someone there because there's only 2 walls left.
It's interesting. Anyway, I do want to go back there as an adult and see how much is still standing.
All right.
I keep forgetting about it when I'm over that way. But that's a different conversation for a different time.
I love talking about Axe Murder Hollow. It's still one of my favorite things to think about.
Oh yeah.
Anything else to add from either of you?
No, and it's one of those where I do hope. I don't have much faith that the legend is still spread, but part of me just hopes it's a legend that never dies.
The Axe Murder Hollow of Erie, Pennsylvania. It'll every 50 years it'll shift locations, but kids will still be terrified of it.
I'm waiting for the day that Axe Murder Hollow actually moves into Erie, Because let's be honest, it's always been Axe Murder Hollow of Erie, PA, but it's in Erie County, not Erie City.
Yeah.
So, like, I wonder how long until it becomes actually in the city.
You know, in Perry Square, they put up those little shed things. In 100 years, when those are decrepit and people find those, there's your Axe Murder Hollow.
You're right, but we gotta make it 100 years to make sure that story goes through.
I think that does it for Axe Murder Hollow. I think this has been one of our most fun to talk about.
Yeah.
But like and subscribe. Let us know what you think. If you know anything about the Hollow, definitely comment or message. We'd be happy to address it again in a future video. I think we could return to any new info that we're given.
Yeah, as we joked about it, but truly, if you are someone that lives in that area and you want to share information with us, or if you've seen some of our other ones, we do very respectfully and peacefully go and look at these places. If you'd be willing, we're more than happy to actually do that, just to see if there's any kind of energy. But outside of that, please let us know any updates you know to the story, any variations of the story, because that's also fun. As Andrew said, the history of this story is
ever-changing.
It's ever-changing, and that's what's interesting about it. So,
if you do have a condo there, I would be infinitely interested to know if any of this was brought up at all, or if it was marketed to like out-of-towners specifically.
Or if you bought the condo because it was an Axe Murder Hollow.
There's a lot of questions to this.
Because like local people would have known it's there, but you got college students coming in like,
oh, they don't know anything. Yeah,
come here.
Affordable housing.
That's just the way my brain works. Like,
you're right, because unless they ask for it, they don't have to give it to you. So do they say, now this was the site of Axe Murder Hollow? Or do they just kind of go, any questions?
To some people, that's a selling point. To other people, it's like, all right, I've heard, I'm out.
I heard Axe Murder and I was done. So, interesting.
Erie's own little beloved tale. Sean, anything to add?
No, that's everything for me. Like I said, I think we were all able to put quite a bit into this because we did, have all of the personal tales and how we were told about them as we were kids. So a nice little bit of nostalgia for us.
For sure. And like always, make sure to come back. We'll be investigating some more.
Thanks, guys.
Stay in the light.